Welcome, beautiful people, to another episode of People Always Ask right here on QueenBluePrintTV, where royalty lives. That's hashtag QBTV. Today we have a very interesting guest who I'm going to try my best to keep 30 minutes worth of content with, because I'm a little too excited about some of the content we have to talk about. So this is Len Burg. He is the founder and president of InnerspireTherapeutics Inc. and the pioneer of soul therapy. And so let's give a warm welcome. Len, how you doing?
I'm fine. Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you coming on. So you have a phrase that is the key to this whole episode, right? Which is that the key to healing is in the symptoms of disease.
Yes. I wrote a book called The Dis-Ease is the Cure.
So the dis-ease is the cure. So I'm hearing that. I know there's probably a lot of folks out there who have some sort of chronic illness or some sort of illness right now, and they're wondering, what are you talking about? What do you mean?
Well, let me define dis-ease first. Dis-ease is more than physical ailments, cancer, AIDS, any kind of physical ailment, or in relationships and in society, problems and issues there. Dis-ease is any kind of chronic or recurring or traumatic upset that is attended with suffering and distress, and it seems like whatever a person is doing, it just won't go away, and it's hard to live with. So what we say in my work is that this ease is speaking to you, and what you want to do is hear what it's telling you, because it's the key to remediation and healing.
Well, so we were talking a little bit about psychosomatic symptoms, which I know what they are, but that's a term that not everybody's familiar with. When you say psychosomatic, you do a beautiful breakdown. So I want you to just explain to folks what that concept is, that there's symptoms that could be related to the mind.
Well, everything on this physical plane has inherent in it underlying concepts, underlying ideas. Take, for instance, the Stone Age man is walking along, he's tired, and every time he sits down, he has to sit on some rocks. It's very uncomfortable. So he gets this idea of sitting, and then the concept of a chair. Then he visualizes a rocking chair, then he produces it. So similarly, everything that's physical has inherent in it underlying thought concepts, emotional concepts, and ideas. So meaning that every physical condition we have, there are ideas at the root of it that may be aiding and abetting and even have a causal relationship to the condition that we're dealing with. So the problem with so much healing, whether it be allopathic or even holistic, if all you do is treat the symptoms or suppress the symptoms, it's like mowing grass. You mow the grass, it comes right back. What is needed is to uproot the roots of it in consciousness.
Now, when you say uproot the roots of it, right, that sounds complex. I don't know how to get to the roots of some of the stuff, right? I mean, how did you learn what it actually looked like to do something other than mow the grass? I mean,
yeah. Well, that's where spirituality comes in, because we're taught, especially in the practice of meditation, that we're the knower and what we perceive as the known. As a matter of fact, we are not this physical body. We're not this race. We're not this gender. We're not this sexual orientation. We're not this nationality. We're not our bank book. We're not our crazies. That's the self, the body mind. But our true essence is spiritual. On the walls of the pyramids, it says, man, know thyself, because the self or the spirit is the source of the healing. Therefore, if we're not consciously in tune with the spirit, it makes healing much more difficult. So in meditation, you're taught at higher stages of meditation, that is, you're taught to stop getting involved, stop suppressing the thoughts, but stop getting involved in them, watch them, become the knower, you see? And what happens is when you become the knower, you don't do the healing, the spiritual energy tends to flow. And that's what does the healing.
And so I was talking to you about this before the show. Something that fascinates me about EMDR, which is a very evidence-based practice, right, is all that really the practice is that you're really distracting the thinking brain, like with meditation, and allowing people's unconscious to connect meaning, to connect healing, and that makes their body, which is where it starts in the body, right? It makes their body feel better, which is where sort of the source of a lot of the distress comes in when it comes to trauma.
Well, actually, it's a dance between the body and the mind. But essentially, creation starts always with the mind. But then it's exacerbated by, like, for instance, if you walk down the street and you're hunched over, you're going to stay depressed. But if you straighten up, but then ask yourself, what triggers you to stop bending over and straighten up? Your intuition, your mind. It's an idea, you see? So, yes, when you allow a person to get beyond thought, what we say is the mind and the body, it's a good servant, and the ego, but it's a poor master. We believe in soul over mind rather than mind over soul, because when we practice soul over mind, then we get divine guidance and we get access to healing more readily.
So tell me about your experiences with learning about the soul, because if that's the master, I'm curious about what it's like, because I there's so many different concepts of that. Yeah. What is it that you've learned?
Well, boy, I started. I have to give credit for one of the cardinal spiritual teachers in our community in New York City, Shekhem Shekhem of the Asara Set Society. That was my first spiritual journey. And he said something, he taught something that kind of blew my mind at the time, because I was kind of sick and depressed. I had skin problems. I had relationship problems. He said, don't you know that you have a divine spirit and that it's infinite in potential and infinite in its ability to express itself? That knocked my socks off, because that's a paradigm shift. Instead of me identifying with the body and all its ups and downs, why not begin to identify with your essence, which is spirit, which is immortal, which is of the same nature of God, omnipotent, omnipresent, and omniscient? So that's how it started for me. And that then began a spiritual search. There used to be a bookstore in Harlem on 125th Street and Lenox Avenue we called it the University, we called it UCLA, University on the corner of Lenox Avenue. Brother Kanya K. Kumba ran this bookstore, and everybody who was anybody in Harlem went through that bookstore. Even Earth, Wind, and Fire went through that bookstore, because there was so much treasure of information there. So I began the spiritual journey that way. And then I began to go around in different places of the world, meeting spiritual teachers, meeting saints, meeting enlightened beings, and sitting at their feet and just listening in spiritual discourse. And I began meditating. So that's how I got exposed to the notions of the soul, the science of the soul.
Did you just stick with one spirituality and practice, or did you go across different?
Wonderful question. In the beginning, Asara Set Society dealt specifically with traditional African religion, possession, mediumship. And I went through that. And then I got involved with what's called the science of the soul. There are many different spiritual teachers on the planet who teach it, but they're pretty much basically parallel, meaning they teach that the same science, that we're spirits, and that to get to the spirit, it requires you to master meditation. And once you master meditation and go to higher levels, you rise above body consciousness, and you experience what we call divine revelations. And these divine revelations they come in the form of light and sound, and they call soma, which is nectar. And these divine revelations is what does the healing, what gives us intuition, what gives us will and energy to act. Uh, and they all pretty much, it's called the science of the soul. In yoga, it's called Surit Shabd Yoga, the yoga of the sound current, the yoga of the celestial music.
Wow. Tell me about the nectar. I'm so curious what that is.
You know, that's a wonderful question, because when we look at television and at movies like Raiders of the Lost Ark, they're running around to Africa looking for the key to eternal life. Some think the key comes in the form of some magic herb or that you drink, which is like the nectar of the gods. And what the masters in the science of the soul teach is that soma is actually a form of divine revelation. It's a form of bliss that you get in high states of meditation. And this bliss, if we think a physical orgasm is nice, that bliss that comes spiritually is much more dynamic and lasting. And they teach that we need to learn how to die while living. Die before death catches up to you, meaning go while you're alive where you would go when you're dead. So when it comes time for you to pass the mortal coil, you are not afraid. That's what they teach.
Wow. What's possible? Like, if you can experience both, what do you kind of have access to in terms of your experience of the world? Because most people I know don't. They're in there.
It's a process. It sounds romantic and easy, but it's like anything else. But what they compare it to is near-death experiences. They say that all the near-death experiences that are chronicled, where people go inside, they see a light, they go through a tunnel, these can be experienced, they say, in high states of meditation, except that you're not dying. You don't, they talk about the mortal coil. You don't get disattached from your silver cord. You come back into the body. But in the process of going up, this is where you get what they call the divine revelations. And you see, those of us mortal beings, myself included, if we just would learn to meditate more often, we'll get a little taste of that, honey.
How many people do you think are actually meditating on a regular basis? Like, based on what you see?
Well, apart from the fact that we meditate even when we don't know we're meditating, but people who are seriously going about meditation, I have no idea how many people are doing it. I know that, there's a saying, many are called, few are chosen. Most of the people in the world, let's face it, they're going the way of the masses. They're going the way of the herd. You mentioned before the tarot, and I had said that in the tarot, which some people are afraid of, but actually the tarot is just a book of wisdom. That's what it really is. You can use it for fortune telling, but they recommend use it more like a weather report to tell you the energies happening at a particular time. But in the tarot, there's a card, the zero card. The top card is called the Fool. And the person who decides to tread the spiritual path is seen to be a fool. But in the playing deck, the Fool is the Joker or the Jester. That's the trump card. That's the most powerful card in the deck. So the person who's in the Fool card, he's stepping off a cliff, and people think he's crazy, but actually he's going into the beyond, which is the mountains in the background, which represents high states of meditation.
Someone is asking, is this the same idea that people throw out as ego death?
Well, the masters teach that we want to bruise the head of the serpent. We don't want to kill it. We want to bruise his head. The ego is a good servant, but it's a poor master. Because you see, the ego is jealous of God. Because through your ego, you can think something and attract it. But can the ego in you create a blade of grass or a grain of sand? No. But because the creator in all its magnificence dwarfs the ego, it's jealous of God. And we feel that one of the main diseases of mankind is theomania, envy of God by the ego. But we don't want to kill. Theomania is envy of God by the ego. And think about it this way. If the ego is acting like it thinks it's God, what a tremendous burden that is to be thinking of yourself as God. Now you got to produce, and it can't.
Now, tell me about your concept of God, because obviously there's a lot of
Yeah.
theology out there. When you say God, what do you mean?
My concept is very simple. I didn't create myself. I don't make the sun rise. I just put an avocado seed in some soil, and I watched the sprout come up magically. That's God, create the creator, the creative force of this universe. So
Hmm.
you might call it Allah, you might call it, you might have certain individuals in different religions who, in those religions, they feel that those persons are the embodiment of God, like Jesus or the Buddha, Muhammad or Lao Tzu, Zoroaster. But the bottom line is, in my concept is, I didn't create myself. So whatever it is that created me, whatever it is that gives me life through my spirit, that's what I consider God to be.
Hmm. So tell me, if somebody was coming to you and they're expecting to have some healing that involves soul therapy, what does that process really involve?
Oh, okay. Uh, it's people who practice soul therapy, or there's a group in Brazil. They I learned some of my methodology from them. They practice something called analytical trilogy. The name of the founder is Norberto Kepi, and his sidekick, Dr. Claudio Pacheco. There's some doctors in Brazil, uh, and they teach that everything that a person talks about is grist for the mill. As a matter of fact, the more people who come to you for therapy and they're talking about other people, you say, all right, go on, tell me about it. Because often it's a mirror. They're telling you about themselves. Meaning
Mm.
when you're obsessed with certain things, conditions, beyond what's normal, right? I mean, we know, for instance, if someone dies, it's normal to mourn. But or let's say, if someone goes past a park and sees a bear, well, it's normal for your hormones to flow and you to get scared and you to run. But what if every time you went by that park, the hormones was kicking, you got scared? You at night you had dreams about it. So that prolonged uh, anger and or fear produces hormones that weaken your immune system. So people who are obsessed with what's going on with other people, there's a lot of projection going on. They're telling you about themselves. So that's where we start. I don't care where they start. All roads lead to consciousness, because if you help a person to be aware and conscious of, we call it conscientizing, of what their habits are, meaning when
Mhm.
I'm listening to the person, here's what I'm looking for. Well, in relationship to this condition that they came to me to remedy, what are their habits in terms of their actions and how they deal with it? What are the emotions that they feel about it? What are their thoughts about it, their thought associations? What ideas or beliefs do you have about it? And what you'll find is that when you suss those out, these are the underlying habits, emotions, thoughts, and beliefs that aid and abet and have a causal relationship to the perpetuation of the problems that they're facing. So we enter into a dialogue. It's a dialectic. Okay.
And so you were talking to me a little bit before we started the live about food that sustains life. So when we're talking about healing
Oh,
and
that's a beautiful, beautiful subject. Yes.
when we're talking about healing, we're talking about food that sustains life. You said you're not talking about this human food. What are you talking about here? What are you talking about?
Well, here in Harlem, in the 80s, at the height of the AIDS crisis, we in New Age Center of Harlem, I have to give a shout out to my dear sister Jupiter Virimo Diaquanda, who she originated a center there where we had support groups for people with AIDS, cancer, and so forth. And we found something very interesting. The ones who survived and thrived the best, they had a certain profile. What was that profile? The profile was, the most important thing they did was they deepened their spiritual connection. They may have come from many different religions, many paths, but they consciously and willfully decided, let me deepen my spiritual connection. And when you deepen your spiritual connection, you get in spiritual food. You're feeding the spirit. Okay. Now,
Mm,
they also decided that instead of looking at this disease as a life-threatening disease as a death sentence, they looked at it as an opportunity to live life to the fullest. That's similar to what we say when we say that this disease is the cure, meaning instead of trying to suppress it, okay,
mm,
try to cooperate with it and see, well, uh, just like we need the food that comes from spiritual when we meditate, uh, there's something in the air, in the sun, in the water, in the food that's called chi or prana. This
mm,
chi, this chi is what is connected to the life force in the body. How do you get this chi? You get it from the sun, you get it from the water, you get it from the air. Of course, you want pure air to the extent possible, pure water, and you don't want to get crazy in the sun. You also get it through foods. Natural foods have plenty of chi. The more the food is natural and unprocessed, the more chi is in it. You
mm,
also get chi when you sleep at night. We should get rest. You also get chi when you hug a tree. You also get chi when you do qi gong or you do Tai Chi.
mm,
Many of those of you who are Facebook buffs, there's a brother on Facebook called Dr. George Love, Blue Dragon Qi Gong. It's something that try to find and exercise, whether it be Tai Chi or Qi Gong or yoga, even fitness, even walking. These are ways of appropriating that food called Qi.
mm. So chi is life force. So we got
There
we
you
got to
go.
feed ourselves life force. We got to feed
That's
ourselves
it.
life.
All right.
And so when we don't, the consequences. What a One of
Okay.
the things that I hear a lot of people say is that Americans have a lot of back pain, and a lot of places they have a lot less, and that people think it's psychosomatic, like we were talking about.
Well, yes. There's a wonderful author by the name of Louise Hay who really gets deeply into the psychosomatic correspondences to physical and mental illness. And
Mm,
what is the back? The back supports us, right? If you have a person comes to you with back pains, right away you know they have issues about support. The lower part of the back in the genital area, relates to money. The upper parts of the back relate to, does somebody got my back? Who got my back? And
so it's
so, okay. But see, here's the thing. Even if the person is in an accident, they'll tell you, well, the cause of my back problem is I had this accident. Well, why did you have the accident? Why did you attract the accident? Because you probably need to understand that the true basis of your support is the divine, is the spirit. You
wow,
need to turn to the spirit.
wow. So it's literally a support problem. It's literally sort of a centering and an
Yes.
understanding of wow.
Yeah. And it's not to dismiss the triggering cause of the problem, but understand there's a physical dimension and there's a mental and emotional and spiritual dimension. And by the way, earlier I said that we're not our body, we're the spirit. On the other hand, we have to respect all these suits of clothing that we wear, our race, our culture, our gender, our sexual orientation, our bank book. We need to respect them because we have to experience them for a reason. We can't dodge them and run away. Spirituality is not running away from these suits of clothing. It's trying
Mm.
to dress them up a little bit.
And so if you were to talk about spirituality, do you think that there's any place in terms of religion where the type of spirituality you're talking about just doesn't coexist?
Okay, what we teach is that you don't have to change your religion for you to be spiritual or practice religion. Look at the word religion, religar. It means bind back, bind the soul back to God. All religions teach you that the kingdom of heaven is inside of you. So you're practicing religion when you be still and know that I'm God. When you close your mind and you go inside into your temple. This temple is the church. This body is the synagogue, the mosque, the church. It's the udrira. It's where we worship. Yes, those buildings made of brick and mortar are good places for people to gather, where two or more gather in the name of the divine. It's increasing the energy, but essentially you're practicing religion when you go inside and you try to commune with the divine. Now,
Mm,
what I've been a part of a group called the Center for the World Religions. We used to go in the UN and do peace forums. And what we tried to get people of the different religions to do is, okay, understand the difference between the cultural rites, rituals, and ceremonies of religion and
Mm,
the universal principles of religion, which are the same underlying principles of every religion. So how do we do that? Respect each other's rights, rituals, and cultures,
mhm,
but learn how to go inside and practice meditation, silent meditation. Go deeper into the scriptures of your particular religion, and then let's sit at the table and compare notes. And
mm.
we feel like the same thing that would happen, therefore, would be what would happen if the Buddha, if Jesus, is Muhammad, if Krishna, if Zoroaster, if Lao Tzu, if they was all sitting at the same table. They would not be arguing with each other like we be arguing on this physical plane among the religions.
I mean, and it wouldn't even be, it wouldn't even serve a purpose. If you, the way that you're talking about guiding yourself, it feels so much more straightforward, right? So
Yeah.
much more kind of immune from fear and all this other, the stuff that would come along with being scared of dying.
People ask me, what's your religion? And I was brought up as a Christian, like many of us.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm closer to Christ now than I was when I was, because now I have a deeper understanding, because
Mm,
it takes a mystic, a saint, or an enlightened being to explain to you what these things in the Bible really mean. You see?
mm.
So you don't have to change your religion. You need to get deeper into it, more serious about it.
What, in your Christianity, what was the biggest shift in terms of feeling like this?
Well, when I was taught that when Jesus said, "Let thine eye be single, and thy whole body shall be filled with light," I said, "Oh my God, he's talking about the third eye." Don't nobody in church tell you he's talking about the third eye, but that's what he's talking about. Let thine eye be single, and thy whole body shall be filled with light. Meaning enlightenment is
Mm,
the key to enlightenment is when you close down the 10 doors, right? The 2 ears, the 2 eyes, the 2 nostrils, the mouth, and the 2 below. Close them down and then open up the 10th door. The
mm.
knock and the door shall open. You see? See, that's a brand of Christianity that a mystic would teach. Another thing, for instance, there's some beautiful ceremonies in Christianity, like communion. Jesus said, "Drink my blood and eat my flesh." And so I asked one Christian, I said, "Well, was Jesus a cannibal or something?" No, he wasn't no cannibal. When he said, "Drink my blood and eat my flesh," he was not talking about the carnal man Jesus. Jesus is said to be the Word or the Holy Spirit made flesh, and it dwelt among men. Obviously, when he says, "Drink my blood and eat my flesh," he's talking about learn how to nourish yourself with the Holy Spirit. Okay, because
Mm,
that's, see, and that's
mm,
what meditation is about, nourishing yourself with the Holy Spirit.
which brings you full circle to the idea of
Yeah,
this food that sustains life,
yeah,
and this idea
yeah,
of like when you nourish yourself with
yeah,
life,
yeah.
it brings you life.
But
Sure.
if you think that eating it's a beautiful ceremony now. If you think eating some bread and drinking some grape juice is going to get you to heaven, no, that's not. Jesus is much more practical than that.
That's not that. That's not the point. It wasn't the grape juice,
No,
because that makes a lot more sense, I think. So let's take a little break because we're getting towards the end of the 30 minutes, if
okay,
you could believe it.
yeah, it
And
went by fast.
I know. And a part of me wanted to just ask you about the Christians, and if you get any pushback out of curiosity.
Well, not really, because when in my practice, I'm not pushing Christianity. I deal with people where they're at. Some people, their notion of God is a universal stream. I said, fine, okay, let's deal with that. I'm not interested in pushing any particular religion on people. I think we need to tolerate people's religions. We need to respect them. We don't need to try to convert people. But I do have clients who disassociated myself from them
Mm,
because they thought that yoga and meditation and anything other than Christianity was blasphemy. Let me tell you a quick story about that, if I can. Um,
tell me, please. Yeah,
some,
because
some
that's a common thing.
in some religions, they're afraid that if you meditate, you're going to encounter some evil spirits. I said, well, maybe you need a teacher or a guide, but let me ask you a question. That person out on the street that's drinking and drugging and fornicating and lying and cheating and stealing and getting angry and brutality, are they meditating? No, there's spirits. There's evil spirits are obviously operating through them. They're not meditating. So don't blame evil spirits on meditation. You need to meditate, but maybe you need a guide or a teacher to do it properly.
Where do you think that idea really starts? Because obviously people say coloniality, right? Like that there's some lens of trying to suppress spirituality that might come from. But when you hear that from people, where do you think it's coming from?
Wow, that's going all the way back to the beginning of time. People who wanted to control others and have power. You don't want people's third eye to open. You don't want them to know the true meaning of the scriptures. You don't want them to engage in a process that will liberate them. So you've got to create a boogeyman in relationship to that process to keep them away from it. Because early on in Christianity, they didn't want some people to read the Bible. Even and here in America, they didn't want us to be reading no Bibles when we was enslaved. And I don't call them slaves. We were enslaved.
Yeah.
Okay. They didn't want us to read the Bible. You see? So it comes from the desire for power and control, the ego. That's what we call psychosocial pathology.
Yep. And I mean, it seems like it's the nature of power in some ways to sort of try to keep.
Except this. People point to Frederick Douglass, who said power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. We say, yeah, but let's give a little twist to that. Power exposes the corruption you already have in you. Power doesn't create that corruption. There's been many powerful men and women on this planet who was not corrupt. No, if you got corruption in your heart and mind, you get some power and get some money, it's going to expose that corruption.
I mean, that reminds me of the thought that a lot of folks have, which is, that saying, our deepest fear is not that we're powerless, is that we're capable basically of doing whatever we are strong enough to manifest, right? That we're so powerful.
Yeah, that says to me that in our hearts, we know better, you see.
and so, I think there's so much value in empowering what's already there in folks' spirit, just letting people know about the power that's already there, that's there collectively, even more so.
Yeah.
Right? Where two or more are gathered, as they say in Christianity.
By the way, I'd like to just dedicate my participation in this show to our brother Malcolm X, because Malcolm X spoke truth. And truth is the currency of soul therapy. But truth in the sense of being truthful about what you feel, truthful about your habits, truthful about what you think, truthful about what you believe. If you're being truthful, there's more of a chance that you will access absolute truth, which is the divine.
Got to be truthful in order to access absolute truth.
Know the truth, and the truth shall set you free.
Yeah. So, Brother Malcolm, this one is for you. And not too far on the heels of Judas and the Black Messiah being released, which has a lot of nods to Malcolm in it, a lot of speeches in that one. So we're going to take a little break, and then we're going to come back and do our tarot pull of the day, just to see what the takeaway from our soul therapy conversation today is for the folks, and then get them off to the primetime TV or whatever they're doing.
Okay.
All right, we'll be right back. All right. We are back, and as promised, we are going to do the tarot card pick of the day. I always like to plug my deck because it's a Black independent artist. Her name is Andrea Furtick, and this is the Afro Goddess tarot deck that we're pulling from today.
And I'd like to say, while you're doing that, for our audience, understand that the tarot reading is like a weather report. You're talking about the energies are available for you to do what you will. It's not trying to tell you what's going to happen. No,
we're not telling your future today. We're just giving you some tools. We're just pulling the truth out of the universe and divining it to you. Right. That's all we're doing. And so I always say they're going to give you a better message than I could come up with by myself. And so today, what do we have? We have, in reverse, the Four of Pentacles.
Mm-hmm.
I always like, are you familiar with this card?
Well, I haven't studied the tarot, so I'm not particularly, no.
Okay, I was just wondering because you gave me such a good breakdown. I was like, because if you got a breakdown of it, I will let you give your gracious breakdown of it. But the Pentacles cards typically have to do with values around worth, wealth, and money, right? So
yes,
probably not a bad topic to kind of bring into the conversation in America when we're talking about spirit and soul and things that get in the way. And in reverse, the Four of Pentacles means that conservative ways can turn into complete stinginess. And sometimes you get haunted by the fear of poverty and your possessions turn into a prison, a self-imposed prison.
Mm-hmm.
It says to loosen your hold, goddess. It will make you feel good to enjoy your earnings in other ways than your pockets.
Mm.
So this is about the wealth and worth that we can't count, right? If we get too consumed by physical
and materialism.
Yeah. Right.
Because the pentacle is in the they represent the coins.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And it represents the fall of the year in the northern hemispheres, where you've harvested the food in the summer, and then in the fall, now you trade and you barter and you get money for food. So if you haven't planted your seeds properly, what you gonna harvest? You're not gonna harvest.
Yeah. Sometimes it's just that simple. You need more than just the coins. You need the trades. You need the right seeds. You need everything.
Mm-hmm.
So make sure that you feed your soul, guys. Other than just don't just feed your boss's pockets. Please feed your spiritual self and your emotional self. Get some sleep. Eat some food. Make sure that you're connecting with the folks who you love and that you're nourished. Because people, especially Black and Indigenous people, we deserve and are entitled to so much healing in that way. So not focused on that.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me today.
Can I tell people how they can contact me?
I was just about to say. Please tell people how they can find you if they want to find you after the show.
I think the easiest way is you can text me at 347-989-4147. That's 347-989-4147.
You're serious? People can really text you?
Sure.
Okay. I'm gonna have that in there. I'm gonna leave it in. We're not gonna take it out. So this is gonna live on. If you start getting texts, don't be mad at me. You can still call me. Just don't. It's hard. You're a hard guy to shake. You're a hard guy to get upset. So I think we'll be fine.
But the beautiful thing about this digital media is you can turn your phone off. You can, but I do like to acknowledge at least when a text is coming, but I might say, look, I'll get back to you such and such a time.
Boundaries. Hello.
Boundaries.
Make sure, right. Yes, make sure that you're doing that. So you guys can watch past episodes and this episode in case you missed the first part. And you're like, wait a minute, what have they been talking about all this time? I just jumped on and heard this soul talk. I think I want to hear the other part. You can find it now. It's right here on the People Always Ask Facebook. You can find this on QueenBluePrintTV.com and on peoplealwaysask.ChantelDoswell, LCSW, just like my name.com. And so you can find us here live every Thursday. And
you're doing a great work. Thank you so much for what you're doing.
You're doing great work. Please keep being the spirit that you are. We need more wisdom spreaders like you, because if more people had the knowledge you knew, then we could teach a lot more efficiently. I want folks to get the knowledge, but
I'm looking for people with knowledge so I can get some more.
Hey, now that is the humility that's going to keep us going out here. All right. Well, thank you and have a wonderful night. I'll see y'all next week on People Always Ask.
Just coming when you get up or get out or get off. And I'll hit you when I get down and get in and get on. Just coming when you get up or get out or get off. And I'll hit you when I get down and get in and get on. Baby, you could just call me when you get up and get out and get off. And I'll hit you when I get down and get in and get on.